Hello everyone, welcome back to The Oracle, a series where I discuss whatever I've seen recently, or read, and tell you if it's any good. Today's episode will focus on Dororo, specifically the 2019 MAPPA remake, which reinterpreted and retold the story of the classic 1960s anime through a more gritty and edgy lens. As a small disclaimer, I haven't seen the original yet, so I will not be comparing it to that and analysing it as an adaptation of an existing work. On that note, let us begin and peer into the Oracle. Our story begins in the land of Daigo, where an ambitious feudal lord sacrifices his firstborn son to a group of 12 demons in order to secure his domain against misfortune. The boy, Hyakkimaru, is born with no skin, limbs, or senses and is abandoned to drift down a river. He is saved by Jukai, a maker of prosthetic body parts who raises him and sets him on his journey to defeat the 12 demons in order to regain his body parts. During this journey, he meets Dororo, an orphan child who decides to travel with him and attempts to make money off his demon hunting. Together, they battle the 12 demons in order to recover Hyakkimaru's body and reconnect him to his parents. That's about the size of it anyway. It's fundamentally a pretty simple but intriguing story, as Hyakkimaru struggles to overcome both facing demons and his own disability, progressively becoming more and less human as he regains his body parts in equal measure. Dororo also makes use of its setting to provide interesting conflict, as large portions of the story focus on how horrific a place Warring States era Japan was to live in, with widespread famine, plagues, and rampant petty wars between feudal lords. These aspects are used within Dororo to explore ideas of an average person's resilience in the face of hardship, sacrifice, and even what it means to be human, especially in a period filled with extreme turmoil. And Dororo executes on these themes brilliantly for the majority of its run, with every episode tying back to at least one of these ideas in some way. In terms of its structure, Dororo is split up into 24 episodes, with most forming episodic, self-contained stories that detail Hyakkimaru and Dororo's encounter with a certain demon. These somewhat follow a Monster of the Week formula, with each episode focusing around the defeat of a central, unique demon. However, this never feels repetitive, as the monster designs and episode structures are unique and are varied throughout each episode. This allows them to feel consistently unique and fun. The episodic stories are then each broken up with about 2 to 4 episode mini arcs, which all act as major development for these central characters, and are for the most part the highlights of the show, as they should be, to be fair. In terms of overall episode quality, there's only 1 or 2 that have objective glaring issues that come generally towards the latter half of the series, as the first half remains consistently excellent, where the second half has higher peaks but lower lows. As for the ending, it wraps up the ideas, themes, and characters in a nice neat bow, and is by all means a capable ending. However, there are a few aspects I do dislike, which I'll get into in a longer deep dive style video that's coming soon, so keep an eye out for that if you're interested. Overall, Dororo's story is excellently put together, despite some minor issues in the second half which don't affect it majorly in my opinion. Dororo's main narrative focuses on 2 main characters, Hyakkimaru and the titular Dororo. Hyakkimaru's story focuses on his quest for revenge against the demons, and his father who summoned them. Through this, Hyakkimaru is used as a wonderful device to explore themes of sacrifice, disability, and what it means to be human, which he communicates beautifully. Additionally, for a character who remains silent for the majority of the show, he is presented excellently through action and what few words he does speak. However, his story is fundamentally still a pretty simple revenge plot, which wouldn't be as interesting without the other elements the show adds to diversify and complicate things. Dororo, the young child who travels with Hyakkimaru, introduces those elements by contrasting Hyakkimaru's feral desperation to reclaim his body at any cost with his own childlike innocence and compassion. Dororo is also the main way through which the show talks about the setting and the insane hardship placed on these characters by the selfish desires of the feudal lords and samurai. He performs this role very well, but these aspects are mainly introduced towards the middle and tail end of the story, leaving Dororo specifically feeling a tad bland in the beginning. As for the villains, I won't go into too much detail here, as that mainly concerns spoilers, but they play around all of the themes I've already mentioned and bounce off of Hyakkimaru and Dororo in incredibly interesting ways. The sidecast also includes some of the show's best written characters for the most part, but naturally, as it is an episodic show, the quality of these characters can vary by the quality of the episode. As for the visuals and the audio, visually the show looks pretty damn good across the board, although some episodes can definitely lag behind more in terms of animation quality than others. A particularly bad example of this can be found in episodes 14 and 50, which seem to feature a significant drop in animation quality, though I actually like to believe this was a deliberate stylistic decision, which I will elaborate on in a future video. But regardless, you have been warned. Another major issue I have is that due to the actual animation of the show being split between Studio MAPPA and Studio Tezuka, who produced the original Dororo, some aspects and character designs within the show can look bizarre and clash with the rest in my opinion. However, despite these two mainly minor complaints, the show on the whole looks gorgeous, with beautifully designed environments, art direction, and well choreographed fight scenes. On the sound side of things, the soundtrack is wonderfully atmospheric, and despite being relatively short, no track feels really overused in the grand scheme of the show. Its first opening is also excellent, and one of my favorites in anime I've seen recently, as I'm sure even if you're not aware of the show, you've seen it at least in some capacity. The second opening, however, fails to deliver in several ways in my opinion, and feels markedly worse than the first. As for the voice acting work, I switched from dub to sub about 3 episodes in, as I feel that while most of the dub voice acting is pretty good, some of the choices made for some of the characters don't really fit very well at all. So, what's the verdict? Well, I honestly don't think I can recommend Dororo enough to fans of largely episodic character-focused shows like Samurai Champloo and Cowboy Bebop, as it really scratches that itch wonderfully, albeit with a more focused central plot thread than those shows feature. In terms of a more general recommendation, I'd say it's a show with a consistently excellent first half, but that becomes more inconsistent as it continues, with higher highs definitely, but also lower lows that might potentially put you off the show if you reach that point. However, I still think that in an overall sense, it's an excellent story, brilliantly told despite a few minor faults, and I'd highly recommend it and give it my seal of approval. Anyway boys, this marks a wrap for this video. Again, another shorter review, as I'm just in the process of moving house right now, so it might be a while until my next, but looking forward to doing some more long form content about both Dororo and other subjects very soon. See you soon, boyos.